Thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate your time this evening. Diane?
I make a motion to start this meeting. Seconded by.
Rhonda, okay.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. 6:36 p.m. Okay, great. David, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I just want to welcome everybody again, and thank you for coming tonight. What is the Precinct Level Advisory Board? We do have a flyer at the check-in counter that has all the information about this advisory board. It is all volunteer, and we are a board for the Suffolk County Police Department of community members. So we have some QR codes that go to our website, and then there's also a community input form where you can scan this and submit anonymously any questions or concerns or issues. If you want to also give us crime tips because you want a little bit more of a buffer between yourself and the SCPD for identification purposes, we're happy to collect those and pass them on without your name. If you just want to point somebody in the right direction, we're happy to do that for you. And also, of course, ideas for future presentations, etc. So thank you for that. We're going to just do a really quick introduction of our second PLAB board members. My name is June Margolin. I am the co-chair along with, where'd you go? Karina Mendez, our other co-chair. To my left is Rhonda Gooden, Diane Shaber, Terrell Dozier, David Pinkowitz at the end, fabulous pledge leader. Not present are Jim McGoldrick, Xavier Palacios, Kevin Ortez, Ken Patrick Johnson, Dan.
Lisa.
And Pastor Dan Rivera. And Lisa Hargrove, correct, okay. Tonight's topic is about hate crimes and U-Visa. So the description on the flyer is learn, and this is what we sent to the SCPD as well, learn how the SCPD's hate crimes unit works and what constitutes a hate crime. The U-Visa provides immigration status for victims of certain serious crimes who have suffered substantial physical or mental harm and are helpful to law enforcement. What is the U-Visa process for SCPD and residents? We actually never heard of this before. So it's been in place since the year 2000, and it's actually a very good law enforcement tool, and also for members of the community as well. So Rhonda, I'm going to pass it to you.
So here's our meeting guidelines. Do you have a praise, concern, or suggestions for improvement to your second precinct police services, ideas for a future presentation? There will be a maximum of 30 minutes total for audience comments at the end of this meeting. Please hold all questions and feedback for this time and refrain from identifying officers by name at the microphone. Index cards and pens are provided to write your questions or feedback to share with the second precinct PLAB privately. This meeting is being recorded, so avoid sharing your personal identifying information like your street name. Be aware that we will not allow bashing, political statements, or profanity during comments. Suffolk County Police Department second precinct officers are available in the back of the room to speak privately with you about crime, police tips, traffic enforcement, or specific neighborhood concerns. Please be advised that the fire exits from this room are located at point exits, and there is a map on the wall near each door showing the exit from the building. Please familiarize yourself with this information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Charles.
So at this time, I would like to introduce the second precinct police inspector, Kevin Williams, who can introduce the members of the SCPD hate crime unit, as well as your fellow other officers here today.
Sure, thank you. It's good to see everybody out tonight. And it's nice that we have plenty of our board members here. At the last meeting, we had a really good meeting. We had the behavioral unit do a nice presentation, and there were a lot of questions that were answered. That really wasn't aware of how they handled those types of calls. So tonight, we have the hate crimes unit requested by the 2nd Precinct PLAB members, and we have the commanding officer here and one of the investigative detectives, and they're going to do a presentation for you. I could tell you that I deal with Nancy on a regular basis. We're both members of the Anti-Bias Task Force in Huntington, and we sit in on those meetings. Nancy does a wonderful job just passing along all the information of any of the hate crimes that occur in the precinct. And we had Claudia here. Oh, there she is. Claudia's here, and we have Alyssa and Jamie tonight. So I'll pass it on to Nancy. She can introduce herself and the detective that's with her, and she's going to take it from here.
All right, great.
Thank you.
We're gonna move to the front row. Does anybody need index cards or pens for questions or notes? No?
And we do have a brief description of what,
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
if somebody wanted a brief description of what it's about and.
Terrell, yeah, you're gonna keep an eye on this, right? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us here tonight. So we work very closely with the 2nd Precinct. The majority or a lot of the cases that we get are from the 2nd Precinct area just because it's such a diverse community. I speak to Inspector Williams probably almost on a daily basis. Sometimes things will come on his radar that maybe I wasn't aware of, or something comes across my radar that he wasn't aware of. So it's a regular sharing of information. So I'm going to give you a hate crimes presentation today, just to school you a little bit about some of the hate crimes laws, as well as how the VISAS work. I have my detective Delfina Rivera here. She's my department authorized interpreter. So she's going to be doing the Spanish version. So I'll be instructing in English, and then she'll be following in Spanish. Would you rather that we sit or?
No,
Okay.
you're fine, just together, so you're both on screen.
Okay, so just a brief overview of the hate crimes unit. It's a pretty small unit. I have 6 detectives that work for me. I'm the detective sergeant and the commanding officer of the unit. I've been in the unit for 2 years now. Prior to being in this unit, I had my experience with the Suffolk County Police Department is about 23 years of service. Before that, I worked for the NYPD for 3 years. I've worked in various different communities. I worked the bulk of my career in the 3rd Precinct. And then I worked in special victims for a little while. I became a supervisor and went back to the 3rd Precinct on patrol. I worked in the domestic violence unit for a little while. And then I worked in the 5th Precinct Detective Squad as a detective sergeant. And then I was asked to come to the hate crimes unit. The hate crimes unit was without a supervisor for a little while. And it's really important to have a supervisor there, even just to have regular contact with the community and have someone who attends the meetings on a regular basis. So here I am for the past 2 years. So just to give you a quick history of the hate crimes unit, and also, and also a little bit about what we do. The hate crimes unit in Suffolk County Police Department was created in 1980. It currently consists of 6 detectives and 1 detective sergeant. This is the most that we've had since I've been on this job. So it's increased. So the office is staffed Monday through Friday. We work on a 9 to 5, 5 to 1 tour of duty. However, I'm always on standby. So if something happens on the overnight when nobody's in the office, I'll get a phone call from the duty officer, and then I'll make a determination of whether it's something that we're going to immediately respond out on, or if it's something that can wait until the next morning, let's say. So there's always someone available if there's any sort of like hate crime or hate incident that we need to respond on. So just the scope of our duties, we investigate hate-related incidents, both criminal and non-criminal in nature. We also review all possible hate offenses that are called into our communications section. So if someone calls 911 and there's a hate element to it, they'll notify us, and then we'll make a determination on whether it's something that is a case that we would get involved in, or if it's something that we would refer to another investigative unit. We also monitor any potential threats and patterns, so anything that gets called into us, we'll log into, we have an Excel spreadsheet, so we log our cases into that spreadsheet. We also log in any notifications that we get by patrol. And that allows us, and that's criminal and non-criminal, it just allows us to track any patterns or trends, and even trends that are going on like nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
We compile our statistics on a monthly basis, and we report those statistics to the Department of Justice. We're required to do that. We also offer presentations at community meetings such as tonight, schools on a regular basis. We conduct training for in-service training or recruit training and more. We attend regular anti-bias task force meetings. We attend the monthly Human Rights Commission meeting, and then we have our town anti-bias task force meetings. And we attend other meetings with other groups such as the Anti-Defamation League, the Jewish Advisory Board, and other boards in Suffolk County. Am I off camera?
No, I gotcha.
And then we attend trainings and conferences on a regular basis. So, for example, I was in Washington, D.C. last year. The Anti-Defamation League held it was a program at the Holocaust Museum. So they invited really officers who were in leadership positions to attend that program, and it was a great eye-opening experience and a great program. I was also in Israel at the start of the war.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was. They had brought a select law enforcement officials from the area, from Nassau County, Suffolk County, the tri-state area, and we were there for a program. And the war started that day after we had arrived there, so they got us out of there as quickly as possible. And thankfully, they were able to get us out. So then for the next slide, Delphina's gonna give her Spanish version of it.
Give her the microphone. Thank you.
Buenas noches a todos. Soy detective Delfina Rivera de la Unidad de Delitos de Odio del Condado de Suffolk. La comandante sargenta detective Nancy Quattrochochi. Queremos darle las gracias por tenerla hoy en esta noche. La Unidad de Delitos de Odio del Condado de Suffolk se creó en 1980. Actualmente, la Unidad de Delitos de Odio está formada por 6 detectives y una sargenta detective. La oficina cuenta con personal de lunes a viernes de 9 a.m. a 1 a.m., pero estamos de guardia las 24 horas, los 7 días de la semana. La Unidad de Delitos de Odio investiga incidentes relacionados con el odio, tanto de naturaleza criminal como no criminal. También revisamos todos los posibles delitos de odio que se denuncian en nuestra sección de comunicaciones. Monitoreamos las amenazas y los patrones potenciales. Recopilamos estadísticas que informamos al Departamento de Justicia del Estado. Ofrecemos presentaciones en reuniones comunitarias, escuelas, capacitación en servicio, capacitación de reclutas y más.
Thank you.
Asistemos regularmente a reuniones del Grupo de Trabajo contra Prejuicio, reuniones de la Comisión de Derechos Humanos, reuniones de grupo de trabajo contra el prejuicio de la ciudad. También asistimos a reuniones con varios otros grupos, como la Liga contra la Difamación, la Junta Asesoría Judía, la Junta Asesoría Musulmana Americana, el Grupo de Trabajo Asiático Americano, etc. Asistamos en capacitación, conferencias y programas con regularidad, como un viaje al Museo del Holocausto en Washington, D.C., que ofrece la Liga contra la Difamación.
Okay, so let's get into the hate crimes laws. We have 3 classifications of hate crimes laws. We have our hate crimes, which is probably our highest level, and then we have our non-designated hate offenses, and we have what we call hate incidents. And I'll go into all of the classifications of those.
Vamos ahora a hablar de las 3 clasificaciones de los delitos de odio y los incidentes de odio. Tenemos delitos de odio, ofensas de odio no designadas y incidentes de odio.
Okay, so for our first classification, what is a hate crime? The definition of a hate crime is a person commits a hate crime when he or she commits a specified offense as defined in section 485.05 of the New York State Penal Law and intentionally selects a person or intentionally commits acts that constitute certain crimes in whole or substantial part because of a belief or perception regarding a person's classification in a protected class, regardless of whether the belief or perception is correct. So when someone is charged with a hate crime, it elevates the specified offense up 1 degree higher. And I'll go into a little more detail as to what is considered a protected class and what some of the specified hate crime offenses are.
¿Qué es un crimen de odio? Una persona comete un delito de odio cuando comete un delito específico según se define a la sección 485.05 en la Ley Penal del Estado de Nueva York y selecciona intencionalmente a una persona o comete intencionalmente actos que constituyen ciertos delitos en su totalidad o en parte sustancial debido a una crianza o percepción con respecto a la clarificación de una persona en una clase protegida, independientemente de si la crianza o percepción es correcta. Un delito de odio eleva el delito especificado un grado más alto y vamos a hablar siguiente de más leyes.
Thank you.
Okay, so who are protected under these hate crimes laws? The protected classes include race, color, national origin, ancestry, gender, gender identity or gender expression, religion, religious practice, age, and disability, and sexual orientation.
Las clases protegidas son raza, color, origen nacional, ascendencia, género, identidad de género, expresión de género, religión, práctica religiosa, edad, discapacidad y orientación sexual.
Okay, and some of the New York State Penal Law specified hate crime offenses include assault, arson, burglary, kidnapping, larceny, menacing, robbery, and stalking. There are 89 total specified hate offenses.
Wow.
La ley penal del Estado de Nueva York, delitos de odio, algunos que están mencionados aquí, son asalto, incendio provocado, robo, secuestro, hurto, amenazante, atraco y acechando. Hay 89 delitos de ofensas en total.
The hate crimes laws were, in New York State, were created in 2000. It was under the Hate Crimes Act of 2000. Recently, we had a Hate Crimes Modernization Act in New York State. It's recent legislation that was effective June 19th of 2024, and it expanded the list of the specified eligible hate crime offenses to include 23 new offenses and 5 additional subdivisions to previously qualified offenses. So it took the list from 66 specified hate crimes offenses, and now we have 89 specified hate crime offenses. And it added mostly violent offenses such as rape, gang assault, and murder. And it's important to note that making graffiti was left off of the list just because of concerns about over-criminalizing youths. Making graffiti is one of the ones that we argue about a lot because it's probably the most common one. It's what we're seeing in schools for the most part, and on playgrounds. You know, some people will either draw a swastika or write the N-word. And because of the way the laws are written, sometimes they're not automatically a hate crime. And I'll go into it a little more a little later as to what's necessary to make it a hate crime.
La ley de crímenes de odio se estableció en el 2000. La ley de modernización de los delitos de odio. La legislación reciente que entró en vigor el 19 de junio de 2024 amplía la lista de delitos específicos elegibles para el financiamiento por delitos de odio para incluir 23 nuevos delitos y 5 subdivisiones adicionales a los delitos previamente calificados. Teníamos antes 66 y ahora hay 89 delitos, sumando en su mayoría delitos violentos como violación, asalto de pandillas y asesinato. Hacer grafitis quedó fuera de la lista debido a las preocupaciones sobre la criminalización excesiva de los jóvenes, porque tenemos muchos casos en referencia de grafitis que son que los niños en la escuela es lo que hacen el graffiti.
Can I just take 1 second? I just want to address everybody who's here today. So I just want to thank you guys for your patience. This particular topic of hate crimes and the U visas is extremely relevant to the Hispanic population that are non-English speakers. Typically, our PLAB meetings do not have dual language. We did provide all of the literature, and we're doing this for dual language for permanent recording purposes, because as we can see and we well know from our neighbors that English is not their first language, they're hesitant to come forward to the police with any issues that they encounter. So we wanted to give them something in their own language that's not something they read, because also there could be like, you know, my husband, I'm gonna cut it out. My husband's dyslexic, so some people have trouble reading and understanding comprehension. So we thought that this would be a great opportunity to do that, and the presentation should not be all that long. So we just thank you so much in advance for your patience, even though we know nobody here has this barrier. It's a real valuable service to the community by the fact that we're recording it. So thank you for your patience.
I do have handouts, by the way. I have, so everything will be in writing for you.
Thank you.
Information. It took me a couple of months to grasp the hate crimes laws. They're very complicated laws, so it took that. We still sometimes argue about whether something should be a hate crime or whether it shouldn't be a hate crime, just because there's so many factors that you have to take into consideration when you consider whether you're charging someone with a hate crime or not. So our next category is what is called a non-designated hate offense. So a non-designated hate offense are crimes that are considered hate motivated but are not specified hate crime offenses. What does that mean? So basically what that means is that the hate crime language is automatically built into that section of law. So remember, the Hate Crimes Act didn't go into effect until 2000. So there are certain crimes that were already built into the penal law that by committing these crimes would automatically make it a hate crime.
¿Qué es un delito de odio no designado? Delitos que se consideran motivados por el odio, pero que no se especifican como delitos de odio. 48505 de la Ley Penal del Estado de Nueva York. Lo que quiere significar es que hay leyes ya que, acuérdense que delitos de odio se crearon en el 2000 y ya esas habían palabras en las leyes penales que específicamente eran para odios, crímenes de odios.
Okay, so these are our two non-designated hate offenses. The first is aggravated harassment. It's a misdemeanor. So in order to commit this hate offense, you would have to strike, shove, kick, or otherwise subject a person to physical contact or attempt or threaten to do the same because of their classification in one of the 11 protected classes. Then we have our felony aggravated harassment, where the mere damaging a building that's used for religious purposes, such as a church or a synagogue, where the damages exceeds $50, that would make it an automatic hate crime, not designated hate offense under the aggravated harassment, and it's an automatic felony. There's also the second subdivision just refers to if someone's charged with the aggravated harassment in the second degree and they're a repeat offender, they were convicted of that crime and they commit that offense again, it would automatically bump that up to a felony. Subdivision 3 is where someone etches, paints, draws, or otherwise places a swastika on any building or other real property, public or private, owned by any person, firm, or corporation, or any public agency or instrumentality without express permission of the owner. Subdivision 4, if someone sets fire to a cross in public view, would automatically make it that non-designated hate offense, aggravated harassment. And then subdivision 5 is if someone etches, paints, draws, or otherwise places or displays a noose in a public place. So it's important with this crime, and this is where a lot of the argument is that you must show intent to harass, annoy, threaten, or alarm another person. So if the argument is if someone, a kid, let's say a juvenile, is in the park and there's nobody else around, and they spray paint a swastika like on a tree or on a rock, and they're not intentionally selecting or targeting someone, that usually does not rise to the level of a hate crime. So that would just be what we consider a hate incident. It's still hate related, but we don't have anyone that feels like they were targeted, so then it wouldn't rise to the level of a hate crime.
Acoso agravado segundo, un delito menor. Sección 3, quiere decir que la persona le golpea, empuja, patea o somete a una persona a un contacto físico o intenta amenazar o hacer lo mismo debido a su clasificación de una de las 11 clases protegidas que se le dijo anteriormente. Acoso agravado del primero delito es grave E. Sección 1. Dañar un edificio utilizado principalmente para fines religiosos o instrucciones religiosas en el daño superior de $50. Sección 2. Comete el delito de acoso agravado segundo, sub 3, de la sección 240.30 de este artículo y tiene una condena previal por acoso agravado segundo sub 3 de la sección 240.30 o ha sido condenado previamente por el delito de acoso agravado primero dentro de los 10 años anteriores. Sub 3 es grave pinte, dibuje o coloque una esvástica de cualquier edificio a otra propiedad inmueble inmueble pública o privada, propiedad de cualquier persona, empresa o corporación o cualquier agencia o instrumentalidad pública, sin el permiso expreso del propietario o operador de dicho edificio o propiedad inmueble. O sección 4, prende fuego a una cruz a la vista del público. Sección 5, grabe, pinta, dibuja o otra manera coloca o muestra una soga comúnmente exhibida como símbolo de racismo e intimidación en cualquier edificio u otra propiedad inmueble, público o privada, propiedad de cualquier persona, empresa o corporación o cualquier agencia o instrumentalidad pública, sin el permiso expreso del propietario u operador de dicho edificio o propiedad inmueble. Debe mostrar la intención de acosar, molestar, amenazar o alarmar a otra persona.
Okay, and just put up an example of a non-designated hate offense is if someone strikes another person because of their classification in a protected class while yelling a racial slur at them, and there's no injury, that would fall under the aggravated harassment in the second degree. If there was an injury, it would fall under assault or as a hate crime.
And that's a misdemeanor.
Well, no, assault or,
No, this one.
so this one is the misdemeanor. So let's say there was an injury, that would then bump it up to the hate crime, and it would go from the misdemeanor assault third degree to a felony, to the felony hate crime. So there are basically more severe punishments for committing a hate crime.
Ejemplo de un delito de odio no designado. Un ejemplo es una persona golpea a otra persona debido a su clasificación en una clase protegida, mientras le grita insultos raciales, pero no hay lesión. Eso es acoso agravado segundo grado. Pero si la persona está lastimada, eso va ahora a un grado más alto porque es un crimen de odio, viene siendo un asalto.
Okay, what is a hate incident? The definition of a hate incident is an incident or action or behavior motivated by hate which targets a protected class, but which for one or more reasons is not a hate crime. So an example of a hate incident would be name calling or insults such as racial slurs, displaying, posting, or distributing hate material. Recently we had the flyers that were being distributed in the town of Huntington by the Goyim Defense League, and they were anti-Semitic flyers, so that fell under a hate incident. There was no crime in that, because there was just nothing to elevate it to the level of a crime, but it was still what we consider a hate incident because it was hateful material. Or hateful graffiti, like I was talking about before, someone who, let's say, draws a swastika on the bathroom stall in a school, or writes the N-word, that would make it a hate incident, but it wouldn't be a hate crime. It would be it would be a criminal hate incident.
¿Qué es un incidente de odio? Un incidente de odio es una acción o comportamiento motivado por el odio, que se dirige a una clase protegida, pero que por una o más razones no es un delito de odio. Como ejemplos, insultos racistas, mostrar, publicar o distribuir material de odio y grafitis de odio.
Okay, and then we have what we classify as an other hate crime unit investigation, where sometimes we'll be notified about an incident, and we would classify it under a non-hate motivated scenario. So a scenario like that would be two people who get involved in a road rage incident one gets out of their car, yells racial slurs at the other, and assaults them. The conclusion is that this is not a hate crime or a hate incident because it wasn't motivated by hate. So it was a spur of the moment. They got into an incident because of another reason. So if they hadn't gotten into this road rage incident, or hadn't gotten into this traffic dispute, that this person wasn't intentionally selected or targeted because of their race, or because of one of their classification in a protected class. They just happened to be called a bad word because there was another motivating factor, and that motivating factor was that they got into a road rage incident before the hateful word came out.
Escenario no motivado por el odio. Dos personas están involucradas en un incidente de ira en la carretera. Uno se baja de su vehículo, grita insultos raciales al otro y lo agrede. La conclusión, este no es un crimen de odio o incidente de odio, ya que no fue motivado por el odio, fue motivado por una disputa de tráfico.
Okay, so what's the process when in investigating hate offenses in Suffolk County? So the call it goes through 911. The 911 operator will flag the call as a possible hate offense. Okay, it then gets dispatched to a patrol unit, and a patrol supervisor is notified. The patrol unit responds to the scene in a marked car. They then classify, they'll make the classification on it. They'll decide whether it's something that they would notify the hate crimes unit on. If they do decide that it's hate motivated, they'll call the hate crimes unit, and then the hate crimes unit will initiate an investigation into the matter.
Investigación de delitos de odio en el condado de Suffolk. Cuando una persona llama al 911, el operador del 911 marca la llamada como una posible ofensa de odio. La llamada se envía a una unidad de patrulla y se notifica a un supervisor de patrulla. La unidad de patrulla responde a la escena en un automóvil marcado. Clasificación del incidente relacionado con el odio. Se notifica a la unidad de delitos de odio y la unidad de delitos de odio inicia una investigación.
Okay. So just to give you an idea of the hate crimes, hate incidents in Suffolk County, we did a comparison starting from 2021. So in the orange, the orange represents the hate crimes, the blue represents hate incidents, and then the green is the total number combined hate crimes, hate incidents. As you can see, there was a big spike last year. A lot of that was due to the Israeli-Palestinian war. It brought that number up a lot. This number here is year to date, so I can tell you that October has been pretty busy so far. So it's year to date up until September, since we haven't completed October yet. Those stats aren't up here yet. So like I said, we do the stats on a monthly basis. And then I'll talk about where you can find these statistics. Okay.
La cooperación de incidentes relacionados con el odio en el condado de Suffolk. Esta es una comparación de los 4 últimos años. El 2024 es el año hasta la fecha de hoy. El color naranjado es de crimen de odio. El color azul es incidentes de odios. Y el color verde es el total del año. En 2021 había en total de crímenes de odio y incidentes de odio 86. El 2022 era 72. 2023 subió a 103 y es por la guerra de Israel y de Palestina. Y ahora del 2024 estamos a 72, pero esas son las estadísticas de septiembre, porque cada mes esperamos hasta que el mes termine para completar las estadísticas. Y le puedo decir que en el mes de octubre sí estábamos bien ocupados con los incidentes y los crímenes de odio.
Okay, I'm gonna go into U-Visas next. So this concludes the hate crimes presentation. I'm now gonna go into U-Visas, which will be short. But I do have a slide following this, but basically we have a transparency hub on our SuffolkPD.org website, and that's where you can find the current statistics. Those are done quarterly. So if you have any questions about trends, whether hate crimes are happening, what the numbers are, you can go into the website. The website will be posted at the end of this presentation. So U-Visas, a lot of you probably have never heard of the U-Visa before. I never knew what a U-Visa was until I went to the hate crimes unit. I knew of a U-Visa, I didn't know how it worked. So basically, U-Visas are issued by U.S. Customs and Immigration, and they pertain, so who's eligible for a U-Visa? So if someone is the victim of a qualifying criminal activity, and I'll go over what those qualifying offenses are, and they possess credible and reliable information about the criminal activity, they would have had to suffer substantial physical or mental abuse as a result of the criminal activity. If they're a victim of the crime that occurred, the crime would have had to occur in the U.S. Or violated under U.S. law. They would have had to be helpful in the investigation to either law enforcement, prosecutors, judges, or other officials in the detection, investigation, prosecution of the criminal activity, including the conviction or sentencing stages. And they would have to be admissible to the U.S. based on a review of their criminal history, immigration violations, and other factors.
El Departamento de Policía del Condado de Suffolk tiene un centro de transparencia de delitos de odio que cada mes siempre las estadísticas de los delitos de odio siempre están ahí en el web. Y voy a poner esta información ya al final de esta presentación. Visa U. ¿Cuáles son los requisitos de elegibilidad para una visa U? Servicios de Ciudadanía y Inmigración de los Estados Unidos considera que una víctima es elegible para una visa U si la persona es víctima de una actividad delictiva calificada, posee información creíble y confiable sobre la actividad delictiva, sufrió abuso físico o mental como resultado de la actividad delictiva, es víctima de un delito que ocurrió en los Estados Unidos, fue útil, está siendo útil o es probable que sea útil para los cuerpos policiales, fiscales, jueces o otros funcionarios en la detección, investigación y enjuiciamiento de la actividad delictiva, incluidas las etapas de condena o sentencia. Es admirable en los Estados Unidos con base a una revisión a sus antecedentes penales, violaciones y inmigración y otros factores.
Okay, and what are the general crime categories that qualify a victim for a U-Visa? These are the crime categories. So I'll go over some of them: abduction, abusive sexual contact, blackmail, domestic violence, extortion, false imprisonment, felonious assault, female genital mutilation, fraud in foreign labor contracting, hostage, incest, involuntary servitude, kidnapping, manslaughter, murder, obstruction of justice, espionage, perjury, prostitution, rape, sexual assault, sexual exploitation, slave trade, stalking, torture, trafficking, witness tampering, unlawful criminal restraint, or any similar activity in which the nature of it or elements of the criminal offenses are substantially similar to the list above. So they kind of leave it broad. It includes attempts, conspiracy, solicitation to commit these crimes. So they leave it broad. One of the reasons that they leave it broad is that the laws are different in every state. So in New York, we have assault. In another state, they might have battery, let's say. So it's subject to interpretation. You know, and if you attempt, if someone attempts to commit a crime against one of these crimes against the person, that would qualify them too. But it's not just open to victims, it's also open to witnesses. They would be eligible too. So if someone was a witness to a murder, let's say, and they were helpful in the investigation, they gave a statement to detectives and were helpful in the prosecution of that case, they would qualify. Other people who would qualify is a parent or guardian of a minor. So if you have a child that was sexually abused, and their parent can seek non-immigration status.
On
So it's
behalf
pretty
of the
broad, and
child?
it's- What?
On behalf of the child, the parent would
Yes.
get it?
Yes.
Okay,
So it would have to be a minor.
right.
Obviously, I think it reads under the age of 18. So the parent would then qualify for the U visa if their child was the victim of any of these. The most common one that we see is like sexual assault victims.
What about, violence victims?
So gang violence, that would probably fall under a felonious assault. So it encompasses, they leave it like kind of broad, you know, so it's really, I can usually get a good feel of whether it's something that that would qualify. Sometimes if it's on the fence, you know, I'll still certify it for them. But it's important to note too that we don't determine whether the U visa is granted or not. U.S. Customs and Immigration makes that determination, so we'll certify the paperwork, and then they'll make the ultimate decision on whether they're gonna grant that person non-immigration status.
How long is the process?
So it's a 6-month process. It has to be done within 6 months, let's say. From the start of the process to the end, it has to be done within 6 months. So once I get the paperwork, so usually people are represented by an immigration attorney. It's a pretty complicated process, so most people will hire an immigration attorney. So I'll get the paperwork from a law firm, an immigration attorney, and then for us to certify it, I can certify it in a day, a week, but sometimes if there's missing paperwork, we have to ask the law firm, so there's certain forms, and I have those forms here with me that I'll hand out. We have to get like a release form signed by the victim, just so that we know that we have permission to release the information to the firm. And sometimes there'll be paperwork missing out of the packet that we get from the firm. So every once in a while, there won't be like a release form in there. We just have to reach out to the law firm and say, hey, we're missing this this paperwork we needed in order to certify this U visa. And sometimes they get back to us right away, and then sometimes it takes a couple of weeks. Sometimes they don't get back to us at all, and then I have to send them a letter. So we try, different methods, calling, email, and then ultimately if we don't hear back from them, then I'll just send a letter saying, we can't certify it for this reason because you're missing this paperwork. But usually it runs pretty smoothly. Usually we'll hear back and they'll submit whatever paperwork is missing.
So the time frame from where you receive it to whether or not it's approved is 6 months. Is there a statute of limitation for a victim to file for one?
There's no statute of limitations. So we get ones from crimes that were committed 20 years ago.
So wait, you mean from when immigration approves it? So like from the date that you submit it?
No.
I think she means which victims does a crime have to be committed within a certain period of time for them to
With
qualify?
the prior question, right.
So if the crime could have been committed 20 years ago, and if it's a qualifying offense, then they qualify.
But
So-
you could be granted the U visa in 6 months? From what I understand from reading and just actually.
It's six,
doing
I
the
believe
order,
it's 6 months from the start of the process that you have to get the paperwork to immigration.
Paperwork in,
But it could be
To-
years.
It could take years to get the
Yeah.
paperwork,
Yeah.
and then to actually get any type of a work authorization can take many more years
Right.
than that. So
I just
it's a
read
very
an
long
article on
process.
that.
It's usually a lot,
So,
so yeah,
there was
so
an
I
article
mean,
in
as
the
far
Times a
as,
couple days ago,
I mean, that part of it is out of our hands, so like, I know that, a lot of times the law firm will be like, this is close to, I think they have a certain amount of time to get it to immigration from when they start the process. So I think they have like 6 months to get it to immigration from when they start the G
Oh, I
28 on
see.
it, I believe. And then, but for us to certify it, I mean, sometimes it takes a week and sometimes it takes, 4 weeks. It just depends on how busy we are. Sometimes we're inundated with them, we get so many of them. And other times it'll be slower, like if around the holidays, it'll slow down. We're not getting in as many, I mean, sometimes we'll get like 8 in a week, like we do get a lot of them. And then we have to do a little bit of a history, we have to do a little bit of research into the case, before we have to supply, a certain paperwork, and we have to, get the facts of the case before we certify it, because we have to put all of those details in the certification request in the certification that we submit, back to the immigration attorney.
That's a lot for you.
What percentage of those, of applications do you actually approve?
I'll tell you that I approve more than I disapprove,
Right,
more than I reject.
just a
Yeah.
sense of that.
I'm pretty lenient with it, some of them are like, it's difficult, because a lot of the domestic violence cases, we have, victims who weren't cooperative or decided that they wanted to drop the charges. So those are probably more difficult. Some of them are plain and simple. We know that the robberies, the gas station attendant that was robbed, that's an automatic certification. They were cooperative, they gave a statement. It's usually with the domestic violence cases that they end up like wanting to drop the charges at some point, or they don't want their other half arrested. So then that's something that we wouldn't certify normally.
Because they're not
one of
cooperating with
the-
law enforcement, right?
Because
For that reason.
One of the factors is that they have to be cooperative with the investigation.
But sometimes it can take a very long time because the case hasn't gone to trial. I know to get certification from the DA's office can take a very long time.
Yeah.
We have people who are having a very hard time getting help from social services because they can't get the paperwork submitted for the U visa, and they're just stuck in limbo, so.
Yeah, it's complicated. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. I can tell you that we certify more than we don't certify. I'm pretty lenient with it. If something is borderline, I'll certify it and then let immigration make the ultimate determination of whether they're gonna grant it or not. It can't hurt to certify it.
Right.
Can you just repeat, did you say the crime had to take place in this country?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it has to be, take place in this country, and it also, for the ones that we receive in the Suffolk County Hate Crimes Unit, I'm the certifying official for the Suffolk County Police Department. It's myself and the police commissioner, but it's me, so he's ordered. So I'm the one who certifies them for the police department. There's also certain assistant district attorneys in the DA's office who certify them. So sometimes they come to me, sometimes they go to the DA's office. Yes, sir.
I'm new to this topic, so.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Is that the end?
So we have the Spanish,
All right,
well,
just
we have
because
this,
when
and
we
then I
get,
have
so
one-
you
and
can
I
have the
one-
microphone so
and
it
then
can
I
be
have
on the
one more
video.
slide,
Could I
with
just ask
with,
also, if you're gonna answer questions, could they be interpreted if people are going to be listening?
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So he came late, but we're gonna have the last 30 minutes
Yeah,
is
we'll
the
finish
Q&A,
this.
and then you'll have a
thanks.
microphone. And then you can, without the microphone, you won't be on the
All right,
video.
thank you.
¿Cuáles son las categorías generales de delitos que califican a la víctima para una visa U? Secuestros, contacto sexual abusivo, chantaje, violencia doméstica, extorsión, encarcelamiento falso, delitos de agresión, mutilación genital femenina, fraude de la contratación de mano de obra extranjera, régimen, incesto, servidumbre involuntaria, secuestro, homicidio involuntario, asesinato, obstrucción de la justicia, espionaje, perjurio, prostitución, violación, agresión sexual, explotación sexual, el aseco de los esclavos, tortura, tráfico, manipulación de testigos, retención criminal ilegal. Cualquier actividad similar en la que la naturaleza y los elementos de los delitos penales sean sustancialmente similares a la lista anterior. Incluye intento, conspiración o solicitud para cometer estos delitos. No solamente una víctima puede aplicar por una visa U. También puede ser un testigo que de un crimen puede aplicar, pero ellos tienen que estar cooperándose con el departamento de policía, con la investigación. También puede ser un padre de un niño de 18 años o menos que es una víctima el niño como o abuso sexual. Los padres pueden aplicar por la visa U con ellos. Lo que nosotros hacemos es la visa U para aplicar es algo bien difícil. So, lo que nosotros hacemos es trabajamos con los abogados que la víctima o el testigo buscan, y la aplicación viene donde nosotros. Lo que nosotros hacemos es que nosotros miramos y verificamos que la persona cooperó con el departamento de policía y con la investigación, y después la comandante del odio de crimen, ella es la que llena el formulario y lo acepta. Al final, el departamento que pruebe la aplicación son los servicios ciudadanía y emigración de los Estados Unidos. Ellos son los que al final es que aprueban la aplicación.
And this is currently who the hate crimes unit is comprised of. Our direct phone number to the office is 631-852-HATE, and that's our website where you can find our transparency hub, SuffolkPD.org. On the website, we also have the U-Visa paperwork. There's what the process is, the checklist, and some other forms on there that are required.
And that's
to
under
apply
the
for a
hate
visa.
crimes tab?
Yes.
Okay.
And I also have the handouts of
Perfect.
while you do your little part here, I'm gonna, your translation, I'm gonna do
El Departamento de Policía del Condado de Suffolk, de la Unidad de Delitos, se comparte de 6 detectives y una comandante detective sargenta. El número de teléfono es 631-852-HATE y la página web es suffolkpd.org. Ahí, en esta página, puede encontrar el Centro de Transparencia de Delitos de Odio, que son las estadísticas, y también ahí, en este web, puede encontrar información de la U-Visa y cómo aplicar para la U-Visa.
This is great.
And then I have the visa, I think she's doing visa in the informational handout in Spanish.
Yeah, I want
So if
that.
you
I'll
want
scan
that,
it in, yeah.
um,
And we'll put it on our website.
If you think you want more than one, feel free to take as many as you can. I also have some information on our Stop Bias program. I didn't include that, in my, PowerPoint presentation. But basically what the Stop Bias program is, anyone who, is arrested for, a hate crime or a hate incident, as part of their sentencing, they would have to go through this program, where basically they'd have to, work, around or in the communities, that they committed this crime against. So it's an educational program that was created by the county. And I have the handouts for that, that has some information about how the Stop Bias program works. It's a great program. And it's even a great program, to use for educational purposes, even like if someone's not arrested, even just to like to teach in schools, to prevent any like, future hate behavior.
How often do you do these in schools?
So we do the presentations on a regular basis, the hate crimes presentations, we do a lot of. So usually if a school recognizes that there's a problem, let's say they have a few incidents of hate, that are being committed by youths in the school, they'll ask us to come in and do a presentation for all of the grade levels. We usually do high school, sometimes it's middle school, but the schools have been really, really great, as far as like asking us to go in and do these presentations for them. And then sometimes we'll do the presentations for the Board of Education as well.
That's great.
So we recently did one for Smithtown. I did one, last year Connect Water had an issue, and it was all over the news, and they asked us to do a presentation for the Board of Ed, and luckily I don't think that they had a problem since then. So they worked, and we did it for all of the grade levels and things.
El condado de Suffolk creó un programa donde el sospechoso o la persona que cometió el crimen, después que es arrestado por un crimen de odio, ellos tienen que ir a un programa para que ellos puedan entender por qué lo que ellos hicieron era mal.
So I actually have a list of questions that the PLAB had come up with, so it's not just gonna be one question, I just prepared. And then I just added my own question, which I'm gonna start with, just for a point of clarification. For the U visas, are there specific terms for the visa itself? Is it, if immigration grants this visa, would it be indefinite? Is it like I know a student visa is during a specific term period? And then someone had mentioned that it doesn't come with a work permit. So I just wanna make certain that, for myself and for folks, that the people know what the terms are of the
Okay, so I do know that they're good for 2 years once they get approved for them. But sometimes we'll get what's called a recertification. So when it expires, they'll submit the paperwork to us to recertify that new visa, and it's almost like an automatic like recertification. I don't know as far I don't know what they get with it. That's I just know what it entails to certify these forms, but I don't know what they get.
Nah.
You can find information on their website, on the government website.
There we go.
About new visas. Sometimes I'll look at the website because I need information. And they do have a law enforcement resource guide for when we have questions. So sometimes I will, if you are looking for more information on new visas, you can easily just find it online.
La U visa. La pregunta que el caballero preguntó es si la U visa es para siempre o que si la U visa también te da la visa para trabajar. La respuesta es que la U visa es bueno por 2 años. Después de los 2 años se expira, pero puede reaplicar. Y la aplicación viene siendo automáticamente aprobada porque ya fue aprobada anteriormente. Cuando viene de qué más la U visa da, Eso no lo sabemos por la razón que nosotros solamente miramos a la aplicación cuando es un crimen contra la persona que aplica, pero en el web ahí hay más información, y también cuando nosotros estamos buscando respuestas de preguntas, ahí también nosotros miramos a ese web también, donde tiene más información para ustedes.
The other questions that we came up with, and Inspector, they might also, you might be responding to them as well, is, so if an individual is the victim of a qualifying U-Visa crime, but no arrest is made, but they are cooperating with the investigation, just no arrest is made, will the precinct sign the U-Visa petition for submission to immigration?
Yes, there's a lot of the visa certification requests that we received, there is no arrest that's made, but they were cooperative in the investigation where they did supply the detective with a statement, and were cooperative with attempting to identify the individuals who were responsible, so there does not have to be an arrest made for us to certify a visa.
La pregunta fue si hay un crimen que se cometió, pero no hay un sospechoso, no hay un arresto, que no se arrestó el sospechoso, si la persona todavía puede aplicar por la U-Visa. La respuesta es sí. La persona sí puede, la víctima o el testigo o los padres de la persona sí pueden aplicar por la U-Visa, y sí puede estar aprobada solamente si la persona está cooperando con la investigación. Viene siendo la investigación con un testimonio de lo que pasó, o está dando información que se necesita para seguir la investigación.
You presented a slide with the contacts of who people can call for questions about the U-Visa. Is there a liaison at the precinct for U-Visa processing? And if so, who is it for second precinct?
So not specifically for U-Visas. We do have a domestic violence advocate in each precinct who may have knowledge of the U-Visa program. So I'm the point of contact. So whether it's by email or phone, and I also on our the SuffolkPD.org website. So people will hopefully know to send them on over to me, or to refer any questions to me. But I'm basically the point of contact for all the visas, and the DA's office as well. But we don't have a liaison in each precinct, but we do have a domestic violence advocate in each precinct who possesses knowledge about U-Visas as well.
La pregunta fue, en la presentación usted puso información, nombres de contactos del departamento de policía. Hay hay una persona de clase en el precinto que pueda ayudar con la U-Visa. La pregunta es, la persona que puede ser la persona del precinto que pueda tener información puede ser la persona de violencia doméstica que hay en cada precinto. Ellos pueden saber el proceso de la U-Visa, pero también nosotros somos los que certificamos oficialmente la U-Visa. También la oficina del distrito de abogados también son los que certifican la aplicación también.
And Inspector, this might be more targeted towards you, but does the precinct actively educate the community when they are victims of a qualifying U-Visa crime, and if so, how?
Yeah, so I would say that the precinct investigators, which would be detectives and or plainclothes officers, primarily deal with these types of crimes. So yeah, those people are versed in, basically passing it along to Nancy if it's requested. So she's kind of like the liaison for the whole department, but the detectives are very aware, and so are other investigators. So they will forward anything if there is a request through Nancy.
pregunta es si si el precinto activamente educa a la comunidad con las víctimas que califican el crimen de la Uvisa. El comandante el inspector del segundo precinto dijo que hay investigadores, detectives, en el precinto del segundo precinto que tienen esa información en referencia de la Uvisa, y si eres una víctima del crimen de un crimen, pues ellos también tienen esa información, y lo que ellos hacen es los detectives llaman a la comandante del crimen de odio, porque ella es la que se encarga de las aplicaciones, de aprobar las aplicaciones para la Uvisa.
As a tag-on question to that, how often are officers trained as it relates to U-visas as an effective tool for policing?
So that's part of, it is part of our hate crimes lecture for our recruits. So Detective Mosby, who does most of our hate crimes lectures for the recruits in the academy, it's part of that presentation, just like it was like at the end of mine. So they're taught in the academy about the U-visa process, and who to send them to if they ever get inquiries about them.
Is there any, after a period of time, any additional training or anything that's provided regarding the process? Because I know all the officers go through training in the academy, but they could be in the department for a long time, so I'm wondering what.
So there's an annual hate crimes training or bias policing training, and it's included in that as well.
Great.
La pregunta fue si los oficiales del precinto saben de la Uvisa y cómo se usa la póliza. La respuesta es que hay entrenamiento para los reclutos en la academia, y ellos saben, ese detective Mosby es que da esa clase para los reclutos, y cada año le dan esa información cada año a los oficiales, porque hay una clase anualmente de crimen de odio, y ahí es que se le habla más a los oficiales de la Uvisa.
And the last question on U-visas, does the precinct have any literature, and I know you just provided us with some literature, but does the precinct have any literature that they distribute to the public at large regarding the U-visa process?
I don't believe the precincts do. I provide it, sometimes I'll when I attend the domestic violence task force meetings, I'll provide the literature there. I don't know that the precinct does on a regular basis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that we do that on a regular basis.
Could you leave brochures at the precinct along with the Crime Victim Center's brochures? I think every precinct should have this.
Yeah, I agree, maybe we can leave them in the lobby.
Is that one of the ones we display, or?
I don't think so.
I've never seen it on the table.
Yes,
Great.
Especially after this presentation, they're probably, you could tell them
Yeah.
that they can pick them up.
La pregunta fue es si sabemos ya que usted nos dio información en referencia de la Uvisa, pero si cada precinto tiene esa información o más información en referencia de la Uvisa. La respuesta es no tiene. Yo soy la que tengo la información de la Uvisa. Cuando yo voy a reuniones de violencia doméstica, ahí yo puedo dar esa información, pero podemos por ahora adelante dar esa información y dejar estos formularios en los precintos.
And if I may, there was community members that reached out to a couple of the PLAB members regarding some questions regarding hate crimes.
Sure.
So, one of the questions was, you had mentioned data around the hate crime cases. What are the type of cases that are often get referred to the hate crimes unit, and is there specific breakdown of that data? You had mentioned the transparency dashboard.
Yeah, so it's broken down on our transparency hub as far as like what type of crime. Probably the most common that we get are like the criminal mischief or like damage to property, or the making graffiti cases where someone will spray paint, it's hateful graffiti. But honestly, it's a wide array of, we get all different types of hate cases. And it is broken down on our website. I don't think I have the breakdown with me.
And that would be, and it's also on the website, if you wanted to isolate it to precinct 2, we could do that as well.
Yeah, so it's SuffolkPD.org, Hate Crimes Unit, Transparency Hub. And that'll give you the breakdown by quarter. It'll even map out the areas where the hate crimes are occurring. It'll give you the numbers, the types of crimes.
La pregunta fue, sé que hay una transferencia en el web donde tiene toda la información de los casos de odio. ¿Cuál es el crimen más que pasa más en el condado de Suffolk? La respuesta es, ahora tenemos un poco de todo cuando viene del odio, del crimen de odios, pero mucho es siendo graffiti y también destruyendo la propiedad de una persona o de algo. Pero en el web, suffolkpd.org, tenemos el Centro de Transparencia de Delitos de Odio, y ahí está toda la información y todos los delitos que han sucedido en el condado de Suffolk cuando viene siendo de odio, y en qué local, en qué sección de Suffolk es que ocurrió.
What is the criteria that is utilized for an officer to determine whether a case should go to the hate crimes unit? Is it if any one of those, what you had mentioned, those 3 categories, it looks like it seems fit?
Yeah, basically if it's unclear, so when something gets called into 911, it goes through our communication system. If there's any sort of, if it's any sort of hate-related event, they'll classify it as a possible hate offense. So even if we don't get called, let's say the officer drops the ball and forgets to call us, it gets logged into our communications log as a possible hate offense. So one of our jobs is to go through that communication log twice a day on each tour. We go through all of the calls that go through our communication section that are logged as possible hate offenses, and we'll look into every one. We'll look at the report, we'll look at how the call was called in. Sometimes we'll look at the body camera video to make that determine, just to make sure that a case doesn't fall through the cracks, because sometimes they do. Or sometimes an anti-bias task force member will make us aware of a case that should have been handled by the hate crimes unit, and then we'll pick up the case after the fact.
If it is not mentioned on the call to 911, but then the person that's reporting says for example, someone had said the N-word or something of that nature, and that's reported by the officer, is it at their discretion to bring in the hate crimes unit? And then I guess to the inspector, is there any type of process for if that, I imagine there's a report that says in the report that a racial slur was utilized, is that ever reviewed with the officer? Is there any review type process?
So sometimes there's retraining of something, if we're not notified about something that we should be notified about. One of the considerations is to send the officer back to the academy for retraining.
Wow, good.
So, which is sometimes
That's
we'll come
good.
across that. But so they should listen, any of our investigators, if something does fall through the cracks, let's say, and it goes to a regular investigator in our crime section or in our detective squad, there's no reason why they can't investigate the case. However, the hate crimes unit specializes in these cases, so they really should be referred to us. So we would like for them to be referred to us, and usually they are referred to us. I'm not saying it's 100% in 100% of the cases, because sometimes, every once in a while, we have one that falls through the cracks. Sometimes the DA's office will pick up on it, and I'll get a call. We work very closely with the deputy bureau chiefs of what's called the heat unit, it's the, and they oversee the hate crimes unit. So every once in a while, something will come across their desk and they'll call me, and then we will talk about whether to enhance the charges, whether to possibly charge a hate crime, and sometimes they'll ask us to do a little more of an investigation into it to see whether they should elevate it to a hate crime.
Great. Let her translate. You got a good job there.
Sorry.
That was a big one.
La pregunta fue si los oficiales cuando van a una llamada saben cuándo mandar esa llamada a la unidad de odio de crimen. La respuesta es que cuando la persona llama a 911, nosotros va a la sección de la comunicación y la persona, la operadora, les pone en el sistema que puede ser una ofensa, posiblemente una ofensa de crimen de odio o un incidente de crimen de odio. Nosotros los detectives de la unidad de crimen de odio chequeamos esa sección a cada rato, la comunicación, y 2 veces a cada turno de trabajo, y a veces la llamada no viene donde nosotros, pero viéndolo a la comunicación en la comunicación sí podemos ver que esa llamada nunca llegó a la oficina de nosotros. Lo que puede pasar también es si un oficial sigue no llamando a la unidad del crimen de odio, lo que ellos recomiendan es que el oficial vaya de nuevo a la academia para entrenamientos.
And final question,
From him.
from me, yes, so sorry, I know this. So how are bias types such as graffiti making in schools handled? And I know that, I believe in the second category, you did mention that it was a felony, I believe, for making a swastika. And so is there just a special carve out for that, as well as I think there was a special carve out for noose and burning a cross?
There is.
Which is not graffiti.
So there is, but it's important to note that you need to have a person who's intentionally selected and targeted. So in a lot of those cases, when a kid or like a minor, let's say, in a school is drawing a swastika in a bathroom stall, and he's in the bathroom by himself, who's the victim? So we don't really have a victim, we don't have anyone that was selected and targeted. So most likely that wouldn't be a hate crime. However, when you have someone of any race, let's say, that has like a swastika that's etched onto their car, or drawn on their house, and they're Jewish, let's say, like that's clearly a hate crime. There's a lot of things that we take into consideration when charging a hate crime, or when classifying something as a hate crime. But the most important part to note is that we need to have a victim who's intentionally selected and targeted. So and the intent has to be there to target and select this person based on their classification in a protected class. So it's hard to say that they're targeting someone when they're drawing a swastika like in a bathroom stall, let's say.
Would that be a hate
That's just
incident though?
stupid. That's just not thinking.
Would it be a hate
So
incident?
that's a hate incident.
Okay.
So a lot of times when we charge these juveniles for a hate incident, we'll talk to them and say, hey, why did you do it? And they just say, they'll either say like it was a joke, or they didn't mean it, or they were trying to be funny, and not that they hate Jewish people, and that's the way. So a lot of times it'll depend on what the suspect tells us too. So if we do pick up someone in a case, and they say I did it because I hate Jewish people, then we might consider charging hate crime and something like that. But if it's something where like they learned about Nazi Germany in history class, and they wanted to see what it was like, what it would be like to draw a swastika, and they really don't have that that intent's not there to like intentionally select and target someone, because of their classification in a protected class.
When youth do, when this does occur with youth, are they ever referred to, for example, restorative practices or restorative justice, such as like the youth bureau or something like that, of that nature?
Yeah, so if it's a juvenile and they're being charged with a hate incident, it would go to family court, and then they would be referred to that Stop Bias program that I spoke about earlier, that I think we handed out.
I'm Janine Salgado, I'm the director of the Huntington Youth Bureau, and to answer your question and to assist.
Thank you.
So we do have Youth Court, which is a program for youthful offenders. It practices with the principles of restorative justice. So most recently, and somewhat unfortunately, the incidences that do happen at the schools can make their way to youth court. It is dependent on the school making that referral, and then the family, the youth, and the parent have to agree to that sanction. But we are available, and so we do encourage any of the conversations that you have at the precinct level to also, the precincts can make the referral to youth court as well.
Okay.
So we practice out of the Youth Bureau at 423 Park
Yeah, I
Avenue.
need information on how would we make that referral?
Well, you can just go onto our website at huntingtonyouthbureau.org and you can follow the link to Youth Court, and then you can contact the director.
Okay, great, that's good to know.
Look at that.
See, I learned
PLAB in
something new
action.
today.
Yeah, can you interpret, any part of that?
Yes. Cuando viene de la juventud y el graffiti, había información ahí que decía que no, dependiendo en qué tipo de graffiti escriben, pueden ser un crimen de odio. Pero lo que viene siendo es que, ejemplo, una persona está en el baño, un joven está en el baño y comienza a escribir cosas de odio, pero en realidad no hay nadie que la persona está atacando, ¿verdad? No es alguien específicamente. Eso viene siendo un crimen, un incidente de odio, no un crimen. Pero si la persona dice, yo escribí o hice eso porque a mí no me gustan un tipo de grupo, por eso que lo hice, ahora eso es señalando que específicamente tú estabas atacando a un grupo que son de las clases protegidas, y ahora eso hace que sea un crimen de odio. No, ahora no es un incidente, sino es un crimen porque la persona estaba atacando a un grupo específicamente, y por eso que escribieron lo que escribieron. Cuando viene siendo lo que viene siendo en referencia de los jóvenes yendo a la corte de familia, lo que pasa es que nosotros después arrestamos al joven si es un crimen y ellos van a la corte de familia. Ahora hay un programa que es la corte de jóvenes, y la corte de jóvenes viene siendo que la escuela o el precinto puede dirigir a ese joven que cometió el crimen a esta corte de jóvenes, y para obtener más información pueden ir para huntingtonbureau.org.
Youth Bureau.
Youth Bureau, sorry.
Huntington Youth Bureau. Do you believe I followed that? Lies. You have any more? I have some, if you don't have. Do you have some?
Excuse me, I just wanted to go back to one thing with the U visas. If you look on the USCIS site, you're good for 4 years, not 2 years.
Oh, it's free.
Okay, so
You want,
wanna
okay,
say
I'm
that?
gonna stand up.
Oh, okay. Chequearon el web, y la U-Visa no es buena para 4 años, no es
thank you
2,
for that. Thank
es
you.
buena para 4.
You wanna go?
The phone number that you showed, 631-852 hate. Apparently, somebody, emailed us and said that the number doesn't work. It says, sorry, that extension is not recognized, and they keep trying it.
Recently?
Yeah.
Good to know, thank you.
I thought it was down for a little while, but I thought it was, hold on, let me see. Let me call it. Cause that's important to know if it is down. That's the.
Sorry, that extension is not recognized.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling. Good luck. That extension is
All right, I'm gonna have to get that fixed. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Oh, boy. Our other number is 631-852-6323.
say it into the microphone. Lisa.
Sorry. If the 852 hate number doesn't work, they can reach us at 631-852-6323.
Okay, great.
Oh, I wonder how long that's been down for.
I'll let,
For a while, they said, they've been
Thank you.
calling. 631-852.
Si el número de crimen de odio que se le dio en la presentación no está trabajando, puede contactar la oficina de odio de crimen a 631-852-6323.
okay.
Thank you.
I have a question. Are you detective?
A detective sergeant.
Detective Sergeant Nancy. Can victims come directly to you without going through the local precinct for U visa issues?
They can, and they have. However, the process is complicated.
Right.
So I do as much as I can for them, as far as like giving them the information on where they need to send it to. So we just do the certification, but then they're responsible for getting all the paperwork to immigration. There's
Right,
a
but
bunch
then
of
you could
other-
direct them back to the precinct to let them know they want this? Is that what happens? Or you just tell them go to an immigration attorney?
So no, I don't say go to an immigration attorney, and some of them can't afford it.
Right,
So what I'll do is sometimes I'll just like print out information for them.
Mm.
But they need to get all the paperwork to support it, there's other paperwork that they need. We've had a couple of people show up in the lobby where we've done what we can for them. And I don't know what the outcome was, whether they were able to get everything to them.
Mm.
But most of them go through probably like 99% through an immigration attorney.
And are there any free services, like, kind of like Nassau Suffolk Law Services, people that might be able to provide free legal assistance? Because these are crime victims.
Yeah, I agree.
They should have access to this
Um,
without it being a financial barrier.
There might be some services through the DA's office. I don't know, I know that we have like our domestic violence advocates, but I don't know that we have any free services, like free law services.
In the county, meaning?
There are,
I could be wrong.
Oh, there are?
There
Okay,
are.
where?
yeah. You want the names of the free legal services? for-
Yeah.
Okay, depend,
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we want
Yeah.
to translate first?
Do you want to translate
Yeah,
first?
please.
Okay. Let her translate first. Sorry, go ahead.
La pregunta fue cuando una víctima de U-Visa aplica por la U-Visa, si ellos lo tienen que hacer directamente al precinto. Lo que la aplicación va directamente a la unidad de crimen de odio de U-Visa. Si la persona puede aplicar por la U-Visa ellos solos, no tienen que buscar un abogado. Pero el proceso es difícil. Lo único que nosotros, el Departamento de Policía del Condado de Suffolk, hacemos es, si la persona cualifica por la U-Visa, nosotros llenamos y certificamos la aplicación. Después de eso, esa aplicación, si la persona no está representada por un abogado, va directamente para atrás de nuevo a la persona que aplicó. Y esta persona tiene que asegurarse que todos los requisitos se entreguen al Departamento de Inmigración para que pueda ser aprobado. En este momento nos van a dar información de servicios legales gratis en el condado de Suffolk.
I think the question was, are there free legal services for immigrants who want to adjust their status? Yes, there are in Suffolk County. There are several. There's Carecen, the Central American Refugee Center, Empire Justice Center, where I work. There is, just Suffolk Moher.
Oh,
Okay.
Santa Maria,
Yeah.
they do it?
Yes. Okay, so,
Wow.
yeah, those would be the main ones. I think there's another one in Hicksville, I think, but Neighbors Helping Neighbors, I believe it is, but, at any rate, those are the main ones. Entonces,
So I didn't realize that the services were free.
Yeah.
I know that, like, we do get a lot of
Yeah.
requests through.
but, you know, of
here
course,
and
there's
there.
capacity issues, right?
Right.
Entonces, hay organizaciones que ofrecen servicios legales en el condado de Suffolk para personas que necesitan ayuda para ajustar su estatus. Y eso incluye Carecen, Central American Refugee Center, Empire Justice Center y Suffolk Moher. Gracias.
Thank
Do
you.
you know about Catholic Charities? I know sometimes we'll get them from Catholic
Yeah,
Charities. too.
Catholic Charities could be another organization, Caridades Católicas, que están en Amityville.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
I think that was,
Like, I wish I would've known that.
it's all the community working together, that's how we make it work. I think you answered that one, okay. Yeah, you answered the one I had from the other one. Up to you, if you have one more question, then we can take from the audience.
So my question was, you mentioned that graffiti was considered an incident depending with pertaining to the youth, because it's not a crime, because we don't want to stifle the youth. But what if it's committed on somebody's property and damage is done? Shouldn't that be elevated to a crime?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. We had a case in Montauk last year, it was a big case, and it was an adult committing this case, but he was going all around Montauk graffiti and swastikas with like some anti-Jewish wording. So in that case, that was clearly a hate crime. It was on a Jewish-owned business, like, so we taking all the facts into account, that's what makes a determination. We're not saying that drawing a swastika is automatically not a hate crime. Sometimes it is, if it's a spray painted swastika. So it just depends on where it's done, whether it's someone that was targeted, and what the intent was.
La pregunta fue, sé que cuando viene de los jóvenes y siendo graffiti, no es un crimen, es un incidente, pero si el graffiti es hecho en una propiedad, eso no hace que es ahora un crimen, y la respuesta es sí. Un ejemplo, aunque el ejemplo es de un adulto en Montauk, esta fue una investigación bien grande y la persona estaba escribiendo cosas antijudías en las propiedades de las personas, y esa persona fue arrestada y fue por un crimen de odio. Viene siendo lo mismo con la juventud. Si la juventud, los jóvenes están escribiendo un graffiti en una propiedad a propósito, atacando a esa misma persona que es de la propiedad, ahora es un crimen de odio.
Okay.
You have your paper?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
At this time, we're going to take audience questions. Please raise your hand, and someone will bring the mic to you. Each person will have 2 minutes and one question until each person has had a turn. Then we will take a second round of questions. This will help for my classes.
En este momento vamos a buscar preguntas de la audiencia. Cada persona puede preguntar una pregunta de 2 minutos.
Reminder, this meeting is being recorded. Do not share private identifying information. Solamente queremos recordarle que esta reunión está siendo grabada. por favor no comparta información privada. In case we run out of time, use your index cards to write questions, ideas, so that we can submit them to the Suffolk County Police Department. If you want an answer, include your email address. At the end, please give your index card and a pen to myself, and I will leave it on our table. Officers are available at the back for private conversation. We will be here until 8:30. Cada persona va a tener 2 minutos y una pregunta por persona para que así podamos darle la oportunidad a todos. Recuérdense que esta reunión va a ser recordada. Por favor, no compartan información privada. En caso que terminemos con el tiempo, usen las tarjetas que le entregamos para anotar sus preguntas, sus preocupaciones e ideas para el recinto y para nosotros también. Si quiere una respuesta directamente, incluya su correo electrónico. Al final, por favor, me entregan sus tarjetas o la dejan en la mesa. Atrás del salón van a estar los oficiales si quieren tener una conversación privada. Gracias.
We have until 8:45 now.
Tenemos hasta las 8:45.
Thank you, Debbie.
Gracias.
Several questions, but I'm just gonna go with one. So the U.S. Department of Justice recently released the Suffolk County Police Department from their oversight related to hate crimes. I'd like to know if you've put in place any additional measures to ensure that hate crimes are being properly recorded and investigated. That's part one of my questions. Secondly, we know that a lot of immigrants, and particularly our Haitian community, is under attack right now, facing a lot of prejudice, and I'd like to know what additional measures are being taken to reach out to the community to let them know that they can report these crimes in their language and to ensure their safety. Thank you.
She's great.
So I opened up the first question. So even though they released their oversight of the police department, we still report to them. We report all our statistics to them on a monthly basis. So we're still, all of those safe measures are still in effect. So we still have our spreadsheets, we still track anytime we're notified about a hate, even if we're not taking the case, we'll do a supplementary report on it. We keep everything on file, we put it on the spreadsheet, we have a spreadsheet for the cases that we're handling, for the cases that we're notified about that we're not handling, and we also submit our hate crimes report to them on a monthly basis.
El Departamento de Justicia tiene información en referencia o estadísticas en referencia de crímenes de odios, qué es lo que el Departamento del Condado de Suffolk de Crimen de Odio está haciendo para darle esa información, si le está dando la información al Departamento de Justicia. El Departamento de Odio, la unidad del Condado de Suffolk, siempre le estamos dando la información, estadísticas al Departamento de Justicia. Lo que nosotros hacemos es nosotros documentamos todo, cada llamada que viene, cada caso, cada incidente que viene a la oficina de nosotros, o cada llamada que no pertenece a nosotros siempre estamos documentando todo y dando esa información al Departamento de Justicia.
And the second part was about protecting immigrants and the Haitian community.
So with the Haitian community, I don't think we've ever had, as long as I've been there, any cases or that involve the Haitian community. So I can say that our anti-Black cases are probably, or targeting Black people, are probably our highest hate crimes, like category of people who are targeted. And just underneath that is the Jewish community. But as far as reaching out to the Haitian community, we can't say that we've done that. Delphine and I recently did, last year, we were on a radio station and we talked about the hate crimes and reporting and what the procedures were. Every once in a while we'll have a press conference when we have, like a big case where we came out with this hate hotline that no longer works. We put that out. We put that out to the community with a press conference. Sometimes we'll do, a Newsday interview and sometimes our high profile cases will wind up on the news. But as far as reaching out to the communities, other than, the community meetings that we do, I can't say that we specifically reached out to the Haitian community. We haven't gotten any cases from that community or any calls.
Doesn't mean it's not happening though.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that it's not happening, and it happens a lot in some of these communities, they just don't report them.
Yeah, maybe they don't realize they can get
There's a-
help.
Yeah, there's a severe underreporting. Yeah.
La segunda parte de la pregunta es si, cómo nosotros informamos a los haitianos o a los inmigrantes en referencia de crímenes de odio, dándole a ellos información. En realidad nosotros en este momento no hemos tenido incidentes o crímenes que los haitianos han llamado a 911 en referencia de un crimen de odio, pero el año pasado yo con el detective Rivera fuimos a radio y hablamos con la comunidad hispana en referencia de los crímenes de odio y qué es lo que ellos pueden ser. También lo que nosotros hacemos es dar esa información en las reuniones comunitarias y en reuniones donde podemos dar esa información.
Thank you.
Karina, I have a question.
Oh, Matthew.
My name's Matt, I'm helping out on the Huntington Matters Board. But I do have a question to you that may be pertinent here. Where exactly does BDS fall into the category of hate crimes?
What is BDS?
What is BDS?
I don't know what that is,
Oh my
yeah.
God,
BDS is a rather prevalent anti-Israel bias on mostly college campuses. If you've not heard of boycott, diversify, sanction, you should know what that is as a hate crime. And it's quite prevalent. I don't know if this is happening so much here on Long Island, because we do have a very high Jewish population. But we also have a lot of college campuses. Armingdale University, Stony Brook University, Adelphi, Hofstra. I mean, there's plenty of colleges on Long Island. If you're not familiar with BDS, you should probably look into it and understand what it is. And I think it certainly should fall into the category of a hate crime.
Okay, I'll definitely look into it. So the colleges that you mentioned are they're state universities, so we don't, it's not,
Adelphi's not a state
they're not
university.
under, Adelphi's also not in Suffolk County.
Yeah,
But
it's
they're
not
not,
far.
they're not under, so that's not our jurisdiction, I think the only college that, so the issue that we had at Stony Brook, recently, that was the state police, we did assist them, they asked for our assistance, but, that's something that they handle, but yeah, I'm not familiar with this term, I'll have to look it up, I know nothing about it.
It wasn't a hate, it's free march, they refer to as an important.
La pregunta fue, BDS, ¿usted sabe lo que es eso? ¿Usted sabe por qué no es considerado como un crimen de odio? La respuesta fue que no sabíamos qué es lo que es PDS y lo que PDS es un crimen de odio anti-Israel que está pasando en las universidades, en las universidades como Farmingdale, Adelphi, Hofstra, y que nosotros debemos de informarnos de la categoría porque eso no es como un crimen, y lo que vamos a hacer es que en realidad las universidades que se mencionaron son de policía del estado, ellos son los que se encargan de los casos que pasan en escuelas. Sí, la unidad de odio del condado de Suffolk ayuda y asiste a la policía del estado, pero es los casos, lo que pasa en las universidades son los casos de la policía del estado y nosotros como la unidad de odio vamos a chequear que lo que es PDS y están informados de eso.
Anybody? Diane, you got, that's it? Are you done? You good?
I have a question, I'll ask her. Please.
Yeah, you can ask her outside, that's
David.
great.
David, is Mrs. Pinkwood speaking without you?
No, she has business in the trunk of the car. And
Say
if
no
she
more.
doesn't do it quick,
Okay.
the perp is gonna get away. So thank you for your presentation. It's very informative. So the Second Precinct Advisory Board has a website. We try to publish things of value. So we have a handout that summarizes key points in the presentation. Are we okay to put this up on the website?
Of course you are, David.
Okay, great. How about the PowerPoint presentation, any part of it? Can we supplement?
Yeah, let me know what you want, and I'll send it over. I can send you over some slides, sure.
Yeah, we could take all of it in English and Spanish.
Okay,
That would be valuable.
sure. Yeah, I have no
Cause then
problem.
we
So-
can put it
so,
up on
Ross,
the video.
Those of you in the Second Precinct, take note. So I have some other questions. So you mentioned that the data is available quarterly from the website, and you deliver monthly data to the Suffolk County Antivirus Task Force. Is that okay to publish on the Second Precinct website?
Sure.
Oh, I'm really on a roll.
I don't know how it would, you have your own website?
No, he means ours.
The PLAB.
Our
Oh, okay,
PLAB.
PLAB, and I'm glad that I
So,
knew
check
now
it
how to
out.
pronounce it, because I was pronouncing it PLAB.
Well, it's interchangeable.
Yeah, it is. So you might want to check it out, but,
Yeah,
but
yeah, that'd be
my understanding is that the most comprehensive archive of Suffolk County Police Department valuable information is now on the 2ndplab.com and improving daily.
Thanks to you.
Thanks to me. So let me, I'm on a roll. So I'm participating in something called the Coalition on Community Violence, along with some people from the Second Precinct. They're really doing a lot of good work, and not once did anybody mention the Domestic Violence Task Force. How would we find out about that?
So they have monthly meetings, but I don't know that it's open to the public. I don't know.
Do they publish it? Do they publish anything?
I'll get the information for
Thank
you. And, sometimes, so I participated in that just because they wanted the information about. And Seppa Muhir's office was in that, your Empire Justice Center, but Seppa Muhir's
So
one.
it may or may not be important, but this coalition is being led by the Health and Welfare Council of Long Island, Vanessa Bear Streeter. So it's somebody we know, and they're really doing good work.
You know what, David, can you just, remind me, or, or just send me an email, and I'll get you contact information for that domestic violence task force? I don't know if it's monthly or if it's quarterly, if they have the meetings, but it might be quarterly, but, yeah, I'll definitely get you the information.
So I'm charged for doing the closing tonight, so I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and thank our presenters. This was very informative.
Yes.
Thank you for translating that wonderful first and special quarterly meetings. This recording will be available on our website, as David mentioned, www.secondplab.com.
2ND.
Second is 2ndplab.com. Please tell your colleagues, friends, and neighbors about what you heard tonight, and encourage them to submit their questions and concerns to us through our website community feedback form as well. And thank you.
And Diane?
Thank you.
I make a motion to end this meeting.
All right, you're dismissed.